Good morning, my Empowered Empath Warriors. Welcome to the Self Empowered Empath Podcast. Okay, so I just wanted to briefly interject here and just say that this podcast is actually, it used to be in the Superconscious Success podcast, and I decided to create this as its own individual podcast to be able to help go with the brand of the Self Empowered Empath. And so that you'll know that the content that you receive in this particular podcast is going to be related to empaths. It's going to be related to narcissistic abuse and energy vampires and codependency and powering up as that empath you were designed to be. So if you find reference within the podcast, or if you're wondering why it's sort of like, says something about Superconscious Success, that is the reason why. If you haven't yet checked out Superconscious Success podcast though, definitely go ahead and do that. That's got some great spirituality podcast episodes you may be interested in. This particular podcast, this is a podcast of mine and Terra Bundance's, and we are here to help you to power up as that empath you are designed to be. With both of us having struggled with codependency and other, issues being around narcissists throughout our lifetime, then it has really opened our eyes, and it's really something we are very passionate about. So I just wanted to interject here before we get into this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in future episodes. After a number of these are done, and I've actually converted them all across to the Self Empowered Empath, then we will start our official Self Empowered Empath podcast, where we will interview guests, but also we will do individual episodes, as I've just done one of my own on codependency. And this podcast is going to have either individual episodes with myself and Terra, or there's going to be joint episodes. There's lots of incredible content on its way for you. Okay, thanks so much for joining us today, and I will catch you later. Bye. Hi there, Superconscious Success fam. Welcome back to another episode of our Self Empowered Empath Segment with my good friend Lisa Campion. In this segment, Lisa and I aim to guide you towards becoming the powered up empath that is free of codependency, narcissistic abuse, and exposure to energy vampires. It's time to power up, and we are here to help you do just that.
We're so excited to have our guest today. As we talk through these issues about codependency and how we move away from the codependency trap and more into standing in our own power, which is what us self-empowered empaths really need to do. Mm-hmm. And our guest is Terra Bundance, and she's not only an empath herself, but also guides other people from surviving sort of the difficulties we have into thriving and really kicking the habit of codependency.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today, Terra. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much.
That's amazing. I've been so excited to have you on this show because Lisa and I are so passionate about helping us empaths, because it's difficult being an empath. It's not the easiest job in the world, but I believe us empaths were put here to be healers. We're put here to make change in the world and to create change. But at the same time, we're also exposed to a lot of energy drain, and we're exposed to a lot of energy vampires and narcissistic people and codependency that sort of like goes in the mix. And this is one of your favorite topics, so I'm excited to have you here. But before we get there, can you go into your story and let us know how you came to be doing what you're doing now?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I would love to. So it actually, believe it or not, started at a very young age. So in the 70s in the South, where I live in Georgia in the United States, I grew up knowing, by the time I was 7, somebody gave me the term empath. But that would have been in 78,
Wow.
And so my parents, because I grew up with the kind of parents that are really aware and open, but also kind of novices, they didn't know what they knew. I grew up going to a spiritual center called Unity. And so I was blessed to have that community. And within that community, I heard the word empath. And one of them, an older person, told my parents, she's an empath, right? And my parents were like, we don't know what that means, but that makes sense. And so growing up knowing that, I am also somebody who really digs in. I'm just very interested in how the brain and the body and the mind and all of that works, and then how that works in relationship to other people. I didn't at the time know that I was codependent. And so I didn't learn that until I was about 30.
Okay.
So imagine being an empath with awareness and consciousness and being having gifts and abilities and all of those other things, but not realizing how codependent I was. So after my second divorce and realizing that I was the common denominator in all those relationships, I had already started going to Al-Anon, which kind of helped me understand the word codependency a little bit better. And then at that point, I'd been teaching voice lessons and working with students, not clients, but students, teaching them how to sing. I'd been singing my whole life. And so I started incorporating understanding being an empath, understanding a little bit about codependency and the vocal stuff, and realized that I think my thing here is to support people in finding their voice, you know, finding their true voice, what that means in the world. Like, what is your gift? How can you bring that out and put that out into the world? And so I wrote a book, and I recently just created some oracle cards, which are all about I am and claiming just empowered.
Beautiful.
What's your book called?
My book is called The Butterfly Process.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Tools for transformation. So it's tools that support people through the process of the 4 stages of the butterfly. And so in the egg stage, there's all these tools that help you understand, like, I'm ready to do something, but I don't really know what that means. And then the next stage is the caterpillar stage, where you're kind of just eating and taking in information and finding things that support you in getting more comfortable with being who you're here to be. And then the cocoon stage, where you just kind of like wrap yourself up a little bit, do some self-love, and the tools through that process. And then of course the butterfly stage, which is not the end. It's just kind of like the new beginning. It's just
oh, beautiful. What a beautiful concept.
Thank you. And I wrote that it took me 4 years to write that book, and I literally finished it right after my son was born, which was crazy because it seemed like there's no way that something would get done once you have a baby. But for some reason, it's like, well, I can birth a baby, I might as well be able to birth this book. So I finally finished it in 2014. And I haven't done a whole lot with it, but I feel like it's ready for a little bit of re-editing and kind of like updating, so that I can sort of take
it, zhuzh it up a little bit.
Exactly.
Put it through that butterfly process. See where it wants to go.
Well, and that's the funny thing, because I was just talking to a friend today, and I wrote a book that was called Alter Your Money Mindset. And so that was really about the whole prosperity consciousness, and, you know, how we're stuck in this whole, you know, this whole poverty state. And so I wrote it, and then I did nothing with it. Like, I have it on Amazon, but I didn't promote it. I had so much other stuff going on. And he goes, but it's a great book. And I said, yeah, but, you know, I think I need to do some edits. I think I need to start to boost it up just a little bit, you know, and I've learned so much more since then. And you've probably learned a lot since then too. And so, and so you're like, oh, I could really add to this. So you've just given me that kind of like,
good. Let's inspire each other.
I'm working on book 3, 4, and 5 at the same time. So
I get it.
I don't know. Like, I just keep pumping them out. So
I'm ready to start writing again. I'm creating the oracle cards, which I just created this year. And it only took me a year to do those. And I created a whole booklet and everything. It's like, once you've done something, you kind of get the concept, you can reproduce it. And I'm very proud of those cards. I'm really happy about them.
They're not, to see them.
Thank you. They're not they're not available out in the world as much as just kind of like through me. I have like 25 sitting under my desk right now. And I've already sold a few. And so it's just one of those things that I got to find the right avenue to know exactly where to sell them and get the right price and the whole thing. But everybody,
we got to grab a copy.
You and I, and you and I should talk offline at some point. I can hook you up.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
I know how to do that. So
good. Yay. Because cards are different from books. You know?
They are.
They have a different life, but I mean, everybody that's used them so far has just, I keep getting texts and emails from people and messages that say, hey, I just drew my card today and here it is, like giving me images of that card.
Yeah.
And they're big. They're like 5, but they're huge. They're 5 by 5. And so I'm suggesting that people put them up on their refrigerator. You know, once they pull the one card for the day, put it up on the refrigerator because it's big and bold. I actually have them right here. I would love to show you just a couple of pictures of them. But
I love cards. Like I'm a big one for the different tarots, different oracles, any affirmation type cards. I think they're fantastic. So
no, I'm working on a card deck too.
So here's just the front cover of one of the I am cards. And then all of them, I actually don't have, here's one. I can't open this package. I forgot to bring my package out, but this one has a space. They all have space theme behind them because it's just like the vast possibilities. And so happy happens to be the one on the bottom, but each one is like, I am courageous. I am confident. I am empowered.
And so you can focus on that particular emotion or feeling or something throughout the day. And you go, okay, how can I bring more happiness into my life? How can I bring more courage? That's an amazing, amazing concept.
And then because I got this other book in my mind that's constantly there, it pulls a lot of the tools that are in the book into the cards. And so each card has an empowering suggestion, some kind of tool to work on, what to journal on, questions to focus on while you journal. So they're very much about like hands-on. So you're not just going to look at, I am happy and then decide, yay, I'm going to work on happiness. No, here's like actually some work to do in that card. So yeah, I love them. I'm very, very proud of them. Really excited about them. Thank you.
That's awesome. And so we'll get back to the codependency. I loved hearing all about that because I think that you know, card decks are fantastic. They're great to be able to also to give you a little bit of insight as to whereabouts you're heading. And but when it comes to the codependency, you said that you've been a codependent since you're a child.
Yep. I've known.
Yep.
For a long time.
For a long time.
I think most empaths really are, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Exactly.
Yeah,
this is literally the conversation I was just recently having with someone. I'm like, if you're born with empathy, you're probably also born with codependency.
Yeah.
and more like our stance in the world, like how we just our framework that we kind of live in. And that's why it's so important to understand and why it's sort of difficult to understand. Because it's sort of like, what do you mean? It's like the air we're breathing, so water we're swimming in. Kind of. And it's a little hard to like recognize it. So how do we recognize it?
Yeah. Firstly, how about we say, what is codependency for our listeners out there?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So for me, codependency has been obviously very much, you know, if you look up the definition for codependency, it's different everywhere you look. It's just slightly this way or slightly that way. And it leans that, you know, but for me, codependency means that I care more about other people's feelings and needs and wants and desires than I do about my own. And so when I focus on other people's happiness, like great that happy happened to be the word, right? If I focus on other people's happiness, then I forget that I have a choice as well. Like I have the opportunity to also be happy. So what does that mean? And when I talk to, especially when I talk to clients, you know, anybody that's working on any kind of codependency issues, the first process is unfolding and unpacking the fact that you deserve to be happy also. Not just first, because if you say happy first, people are like, I can't handle it, you know. But when you say happy also, it kind of puts a foot in the door where it's like, where's your happiness? Where does it live? What do you desire? What do you want? And I hear so often, I don't know. I don't know what I want. You know.
And do you think that especially as parents, this is a big problem with parents, is the codependency with their kids. Because we know that as parents, what do? We put our kids first. I mean, that's always that's always the case. Well, majority of the case. If you know, you kind of trying to bring up well-adjusted,
healthy kids. Well-adjusted.
But at the same time, we forget about ourselves. And you know, for years that was my situation. It was like I put everything into the kids.
Mhm.
And, because I thought, well, I had to. That's my, but
That's
then,
my job.
but then I was on the back burner, and
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, and my husband kept saying, you've got to put yourself first. Come on, it's
Mhm.
time to put yourself first. But I didn't see it. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of something that I want to talk to you about, because I
Mm.
think that with codependency, often we don't know. It's
Right.
kind of like we think we're doing the right thing, but what are some of the subtle signs that we're actually codependent, other than we put other people first? What are some of the signs that might indicate that that's the case? Because there's lots of different things that can happen
Yeah.
in that situation.
So it just so happens, because I'm an older mom, I had my son at 43. I hang out with a lot of younger moms, and because I get to hang out with a lot of younger moms, I see exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I see that, if I had had my son 10 years or 20 years sooner, I would be a completely different mom.
Yeah.
And I can't say 100% that I've got it down, because they come in with all these lessons for us.
Absolutely.
and I happen to be a Taurus and my son's a Leo, so it's always like,
wow.
oh, who's gonna win?
Earth and fire.
But at the same time, there's points where I get stuck in a loop with him, and then I realize, you know what, I'm a grown adult. I'm not 8 years old. There's no reason for me to argue with my son. All I need to do is take a breath and tell him to do the same thing that I tell him to do. Honey, it's time to take a breath. And I take a breath and I pause and I go, you know what? There's no point in us arguing about this.
Yeah.
And so I think that the ruts that we get into, what I see a lot of, especially moms, because I tend to work a lot with moms, that and I don't want to pigeonhole that and be like, moms are the only ones that are home with their kids, dads too, but I tend to be a lot more aware of the moms, because that's the ones I spend the most time with. And so when I'm working with, say, a young mom or a mom of young children, I can, it's easier to see it there, because they're like, I'm worn out all the time. I'm tired all the time. I feel like I'm constantly, dealing with the next thing, but I don't know how to come up for air. And so you hear all these phrases, and the thing is, I even before I had a kid, I was talking to moms about taking care of yourself, just like you said. People say to you, if we don't take care of ourselves, so parents will always say, well, what does that look like? I'm like, you have 10 minutes in a day, 5 minutes in a day. Okay, if you have an infant, it's not as easy. Right? So you have to call in support. So what are the different things that we have to do to not be as codependent? We have to know how to set boundaries.
Yes.
We have to know how to ask for help. And then we have to know how to take care of ourselves. So that's the big unknown. People who are codependent are like, okay, I've asked for help, I've started setting boundaries, now what? It's like, okay, what do you like? What do you like to do? When do you do those things?
What I see this really coming up is because my kids are adults. So I see the moms I'm hanging out with are empty nesters. And it's sometimes when we have this shift into the empty nest is when this massive crisis happens, because for people, because they're like, oh, I don't have a reason for existing anymore.
Right.
Like that was my whole reason to be, and like really having to disconnect from your children as adults, even though I know better and I should know how to do it, is still challenging for me. Like, we just like really like letting them be their own selves and refocusing, and that's when my career took off, when I started writing books and really feeling like I had the time to do all the things that I've been doing. But I think empty nest is like, if you haven't handled it yet, by the time you get to empty nest, you've got a problem.
Because then you can't let go. You can't let go.
And you have you really are like, whoa, it's
what's
such a
my
shift,
life?
Actually, that was something I was actually looking at focusing on it at some point, was actually those parents there that their kids have left home, or maybe they're at that independent age where, like my kids are, 18 and 20, they're kind of like, my daughter's out all weekend with either her boyfriend or her friends. And so it's about cutting those cords. And which is more difficult when they're still living with you. But it's also about just going, okay, they're going to be fine. They're going to be okay. And it's time for us to focus on our stuff. It's time for us to focus on our mission and our purpose. But that's tough for like you said, Lisa, that's tough for the empty nesters out there.
It is. And if you haven't, like you said, Lisa, if you haven't figured it out by then, like now
that's hard.
A big
now what
smack, like
it
big,
is,
like, you know.
Yep, right up against the head. And one of the things that I'm noticing, and again, this is like thank God I've done the work that I have. You know, I have 20 years worth of support and awareness and practice and tool building and everything else before I had my kid. That I get to talk to him a lot about that. You know, he didn't come in with as much of a codependent nature as I did. He's sensitive, but I don't really know yet if he's an empath. It doesn't seem to come across that way.
Okay.
And so I consider him more very highly sensitive, you know. But he doesn't have the like natural compassion and desire to please that I had at that age.
Okay.
And I'm kind of like, thank goodness, you know. And so I get to work with that, but also teach him compassion. And so I'm kind of going back and forth with constantly asking him the question, what are my main two jobs? And he knows the answer because I've been saying it to him since he was 2 or 3 years old: to love you and to keep you safe. That's it. It's not my job to make you happy. It's not my job to keep you from being bored. I mean, he's an unschooled kid, you know, so I've chosen to unschool him, which is not even a phrase. Like, how do you unschool when you're not actually schooling? But we work with community, you know, we work with other groups, and I give him the space to kind of he taught himself how to read when he was 4.5. Like, those are the kind of things that I know that my parents are amazing and awesome. I love them beyond the sky and moon, you know? Like, they are everything. And they're also both, you know, working on their own codependency stuff. And so I came by it. Not only did I come by it naturally when I was born, but then I came by it through nurturing, that I had this codependency built into my whole entire existence. And so I get to work with them when they're working with my son, you know, and we're all working. Luckily, they're spiritually minded, and they're constantly working on themselves. They're always reading the same kind of books that I'm reading, and introducing me to stuff. And so we get to work hand in hand with community. But the thing is, a lot of codependent parents who don't know how to ask for help. Where they don't have that community. You know?
And so what do you think the cause is for this codependency? If you're an adult and you find that you're stuck in this rut of codependency, as we said, obviously as an empath, it's pretty common. But what do you think? Like, does it come to our childhood? Does it come to our experiences as we were brought up? Does it come to our parents' codependency habits? What's kind of the causes behind it?
So I'm going to go ahead and preempt with this. I'm not a therapist. No. I'm not a licensed practitioner, right? I am someone who's been doing this work for a very long time. And so I understand it from the place of learned experience, right? Not from trained experience, which sometimes to me feels like it's a little too much in a box. I do too. So I just want to preempt with that, because I'm not going to come from a psychological you know, background. But what I can say is that I think our society it builds it into us, you know? And I'm going to definitely say that because I'm from America and I live in America, it's easy for me to say in the US, it is one of the most codependent places in the world. You know, we are, it's built into religion. It's built into depending on someone else to take care of you. And so when it's built into society, and then you come by it, you know, from a natural empathic place, and then you're born into it with your family, it's like you've got multiple layers of codependent stuff kind of like squeezing in on you.
I think it's like really split in our country. Like I live in New England, and I see like it's empaths like one side or narcissists on the other, and somehow it's like really like the super heavy polarity in our country, and that a lot of the learned stuff breeds narcissism,
Yeah.
You know, like a lot,
Yeah.
especially in the younger generations and the social media
Right.
generations,
Right.
it's like
The
all our,
entitled people.
yes, our
Self-entitled.
whole culture, like you
Yeah.
fall sort of heavily on one side of
One
this
side or the
polarity
other.
or the other,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
you know, and then we end up in relationship with each other in some way, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Everything else explodes, right?
right. But I think
So
it's like here you're an empath or you're a narcissist. It's like what happened to the healthy middle? I don't know.
it's
Yeah.
interesting that you say that, because I think that when you say that, absolutely today, that is I feel like
Yeah.
I agree.
Mm.
Like growing up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it kind of, you started seeing the process
Right.
kind of ease through social media, through, you know, internet, and the
Yes.
ability to communicate to people more everywhere, you know, like the entitlement and the you
Mhm.
know, all of that is kind of like breeds this separation. And at the same time, oh, I'm just gonna go there.
Yeah, go
I don't
there.
know. I feel like like there's some channeling stuff that's wanting to come through right now. Like,
Yep.
so I think that the middle ground really is there. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like the bridge between the heart and the throat. The
Mhm.
high heart chakra is that bridge that helps us connect our passion, you know, our deep inset passion in the world, and then bring it through the high heart, out through the throat, and out into the world, right?
Mhm.
I think that there's a bridge between empaths and or highly sensitive people, because I would
Yeah.
put them in a category
Same
together,
category,
because
yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not always synonymous, right?
But
There's
they're related.
together, right? And then like you said, the narcissistic tendencies, because
Yeah.
here's the thing, like we've decided so much in this society that there's either empaths or there's narcissists. The thing is, narcissists are also bred. You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
codependency is also bred. And so when we've got the, like, where's the middle ground? The middle ground is choice. You know, the middle ground is, which side do I choose to be on? Do I choose to lean towards not necessarily codependency, but compassion?
Yeah.
Or do I lean towards me, mine, I get whatever I want, I'm an entitlement, you
Mhm.
know?
Yep.
And so, like,
I always thought there was a big opportunity there, like
There is
for
a
us to
massive
come
opportunity.
towards each
That's
other.
it.
You know, like
That's it.
we as empaths, we invite people with narcissistic tendencies to open their heart and learn
Yes.
to be more empathic, and they certainly invited us to be better boundaried.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And they will keep at us until we
That's right.
learn to be better
That's
boundaried.
right.
And
And
then
'cause
somehow we meet in that middle. It's like a
Yes.
dance, you know,
Yeah.
and we
It is.
kind of can learn to meet in that middle.
Because we
Yep.
know as empaths, our boundary setting sucks really badly. So it's kind of, and this is what Lisa and I are always saying is, you know, it is a constant daily thing for me.
Yeah.
It's like,
Mhm.
okay, you know, with my kids, it's like, okay, got to set this boundary. And
Yeah.
every time I am successful with that boundary, I give myself a high five. And I
Yeah.
say, great job. You just, and I'll say, that's a win. That's a win for
That's
me,
it, we'll
because
win. That's right.
it's just an opportunity to recognize, okay, we're growing. And the thing
Mhm.
is, what we have to understand is that the narcissists in our lives, and we've all come across them,
Yep.
and we've probably all got some in our lives at right now.
Mhm.
But they're here to teach us a lesson.
Yeah.
They're here to help us to grow and to expand and to learn about ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have that, if we just had a world full of empaths, I'm sorry, but that would be crazy.
We'd
And
never
I
be
think
like a swamp. We'd never get out of
Yep.
this. We'd never get out
We'd
of
all
the
just
swamp. Yeah, we'd never get off the couch and stop watching
Nope.
Netflix. I don't know.
Exactly. Like, yay, we're all doing this together. Ah. Yeah.
so it's like, so we do need people of different personalities.
Yeah.
And let's face it, everybody to some degree has some narcissistic tendencies.
Yeah.
Not saying they're narcissistic, but they have some
Absolutely.
narcissistic tendencies because
it's survival.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
But I think that if we start to look at it more as in, okay, what am I to learn from this? How
Mhm.
could, even if it's just as much as, okay, I can start setting boundaries. Okay,
Yeah.
I can grow as a boundary setter. I can start to increase that self-worth, because when you're
Right.
codependent, something happens to your self-worth and your identity that you kind of lose yourself. So how does that happen, Tara? Like, I mean, personally, for your experience,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel that your identity, you kind of lost that? You kind of merge into
Oh, yeah.
somebody else's identity
Yeah.
and you lose yourself.
You do. And I mean, I can kind of, without getting too deep into it, because it's not the Terra show, but I can definitely say that when I was married to my first husband, he saw something in me as a musician, as a singer, as a performer. And so he sucked me in, so to speak,
Okay.
by really like praising that about me. Right. And at that point, I think, we're always looking for people to see us, and
Validation.
especially to validate us, And the thing is, we can't look outside of ourselves.
No.
As a newly, as an aware person.
Yeah.
I recognize that it's up to me to empower myself and to see my own gifts and to, live from that space. But at that time I was 21.
Yeah.
And,
You're a baby.
I was a baby, and
Yeah.
he saw something in me that, only my family or close friends kind of saw. And I was, at that point, I've been performing my whole life. So I've been on stage. I'm used to receiving, applause and congratulations, and, you're so good. And, words of affirmation. So that became my love language, because I was seeking out words of affirmation. Well, guess what? That becomes extremely codependent.
Yeah.
Right.
Which you can't survive without it.
I felt like I could not survive. So then he comes along, praise. And so what I had to learn during that time, we were together for 8 years officially, but separated the last year. So 7 years together. We were in a band together. We were in a band with his dad and his people, his family. And so I'm like living my best life, so to speak, because I'm performing every weekend. I'm making money doing what I love. I'm teaching preschool music classes. I'm teaching voice lessons. I'm like living the musician life, because of quote unquote him, because he helped me get that. So I depended so much on that I did not know what a narcissist was. I did not know what somebody who's like a vampire
sucking
was.
The energy from you,
sucking that energy constantly.
Yeah.
So he lived vicariously through
you,
my strength, my ability. And it wasn't until I finally was like waking up again, because I feel like I fell asleep during that time, and so I had this awake, aware, like mostly tuned in childhood. Then I come into college, and then I come into this relationship, and I fell asleep. And it wasn't until I started waking up again that I could feel little parts of my brain literally like
lighting up.
Arms. I've been so tired. Wait a minute. What the hell?
It's like waking up, right? It's like waking up
literally
from like hypnotic suggestions that the narcissists like to give us,
Oh my God. And then the soul part of me is going, what just happened? Like, where are we right now? And I didn't know about therapy. I was afraid of therapy for a couple of reasons, but I didn't think therapy was the way. So I finally left after many years of threatening to leave, finally left because I actually had a miscarriage, and that miscarriage woke me up.
Yeah.
That miscarriage was kind of like, oh my God, this could have been forever, And so what are you going to do now? That's basically the message that I got from my soul self. What are you going to do now? And I decided I'm going to live a better, healthy life. I'm not going to let somebody else control my life. I'm not going to give my life away to someone else. And so, I mean, that's using that as an example. I think that we get sucked in by our nature. What is our nature? My nature is that I am an Enneagram 8. So I care about justice, right? So I want to, so anybody who talks about justice to me, they've got me roped in, right? Or if I care about, like the words of affirmation got me roped in. Every one of those little things, you know, can kind of pull me into someone else's sphere.
Yeah.
And then I'm diving in head first, because I'm also somebody who loves to collaborate. So
Mhm.
somebody talks about collaboration with me and I'm like, all in. And then I realized, wait a minute, we're not collaborating on my thing, we're collaborating on their thing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like there's so many places where you can recognize where my kind of weaknesses were, which also can be my strengths.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But where do I let myself go? Where do I let myself get kind of like tied it, pulled into
So
someone
moment
else's?
by moment, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's like
it
moment.
is.
And for me, like I often don't know where my boundary is until I stepped over it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Myself,
Absolutely.
until I like,
That's
and
it.
I'm like, oh, this is gonna be okay, and then it's not okay.
Right.
I'm like, oh wait, no, this doesn't feel good.
This is
Yep.
not good.
You know, and I'm like, whoa.
And
like,
that's it. It is about tapping into it. It's like if you tapped in every moment of every day and going, how am I feeling right now?
Yeah.
Do I feel good about this? Don't I
That's
feel
it.
good about this? If I
That's
don't
it.
feel good about this, I've crossed a boundary. If I don't feel good
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
this, someone else has crossed a boundary. Let's just reassess this. And I think the problem is what people don't realize is when we tap into our soul, for instance, our soul's not about our physical body. Our soul's not about our emotions or our thoughts, or it's about who we are. It's about our true nature. And so once we can start to tap into that and go, you know what, all of that's just rubbish. That's just stuff that's helping me to learn and experience, and our soul wants to experience through us. And so it's kind of like, okay, we need to be in the present moment. Be right now, and every single second that you've got, you go, how do I feel right now? Okay, I feel good. I feel good. I'm on a roll. I'm on the right track. And, you know, I do the same thing. If I'm doing the dishes, I'm in the moment. I'm present, and I'm just like, you know, feeling the dishes. And this is how we tap into our soul. This is how we tap into what our true nature is. And I think that the problem is that when we don't do that, we are so, as you said, we're so dependent or codependent on what other people think of us or how other people feel about us. And so then codependency comes in. It's so important for us to tap into that present moment.
It's interesting.
Jen, that was beautiful.
That was beautiful. That was totally channeled.
That was totally channeled. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Bravo. Because what it did was it started sparking all this like, oh, right. You know, like reminder. So it's interesting because as you were talking, the phrase, is it mine, kept popping in because that's one of the tools that I use with every single codependent or empath or highly sensitive person.
My energy or someone else's.
Is it mine? Is it mine? Yeah. And the thing is, like, my dad's an empath. And my mom's highly sensitive, but my dad is like me, but he didn't know it until he was like in his 60s because I kept saying, you're an empath, Dad, come on. And he'd be like, I don't know, you're an empath, you know things. And I would say, don't give your power away, you know?
Okay, so let me tap into that because you're very self-aware. I mean, we can look at you and go, you are so self-aware as to who you are. And to what your soul's true calling is, and you can see that.
Thank you.
How could somebody know, say you were to look at somebody, how would you be able to detect that they're an empath? As opposed to just an everyday person that, you know, we probably know the answer, but I'd love our listeners to hear this.
Right. So basically empaths know each other. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Because shared experience is recognizable, right? Yeah. So first and foremost, I think that's, you know, and I think that the differentiation between empath and highly sensitive is important. And I only learned about highly sensitive people like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, you know? So learning that there's a slight difference and that there's also different kinds of highly sensitive people. There's the kind like who are very sensitive to sounds and noises and you know, sensory input. And then there's the highly sensitive person, which is more like me, which can see things coming. You know, like you just know something's on the horizon, and they're the 20% of the population of the world, including animals, children, adults, men, women, 20% of each category. is highly sensitive.
Oh,
And
okay.
within Anna, and this is based on Elaine
Elaine
Aron.
Aron. Yeah, and the highly sensitive person, her work.
So good. And
good.
so what I learned from reading that and kind of diving into that world is that if you take an animal, a group of animals, let's say, a deer or some kind of hooved animal who lives out in the wilderness, in the wild, 20% of that group of, let's say 100, there's 20 of them that are considered highly sensitive. Their sensitivity is they sense when something's about to happen, possibly days ahead of time, right? So they don't smell smoke if there's a fire, but they sense something's up. And you see them. They're the ones that
they know the hurricane's coming.
They know the hurricane's coming, the tsunami's coming, something is happening in the world that's about to take us out. And so they're the ones that go, and look around and then start
they feel the disturbance in the force.
That's it. They feel the disturbance in the force and they start moving to high ground or moving to caves or moving to wherever is safe. And the rest of the herd follows them because they trust them. They believe them. Right. So as highly sensitive people, we've got this added bonus of nobody gets it. Nobody believes us. Nobody understands until it's too late. We're sitting there going, guys, red lights, red flashing, something's happening. So
Glennon Doyle talks about that as the canary in the coal mine.
That's
too,
it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And I love Glennon. I love her stuff so much.
She's written a lot of really good stuff on this topic.
She has. And Brene Brown, when you talk about, that whole sensitive stuff, being, what is the shame, the whole shame cycle that we fall into, it's all out there. We have it. So,
and shame is such a big problem when it comes to empaths, codependence, because I think there's just this, the moment we start to set boundaries, all of a sudden, there's the guilt and the shame that starts to kick in. And especially if you're with a narcissist, because then they'll start going, oh, you're so selfish and you don't think,
how dare you?
How dare you?
Yeah. Well, and that's why when you think about 20%, right?
Yeah.
When you think about there's 80% of the people out there in the world that don't trust this instinct.
Yeah.
That don't believe it, that don't see it, that don't hear it when it's repeated over and over again, then we're battling constantly this need to be seen, so that we're constantly feeding more into the shame cycle, the fear cycle, the I'm never seen cycle, the I'm all alone cycle. Like we feel like we're alone, but then we recall like there are other people like me. Let's find those people and let's kind of group together so that we can all be on the same page and be like the big loud crowd saying, hey guys, red flags, as opposed to one lonely person in a group of 10, 15, 20, however 80,
And this is why I'm so big on this is why I'm building Superconscious Success up, because it's all about getting people together, getting all of us healers together, getting all of us spiritual leaders together that are able to come together as a force to be able to get the message out, because we can only do so much as an individual person. But if we work together and we collaborate and we build a family that can do this, then we can help so many people to get out of that rut of no matter what they're going in, whether it's the whole spirituality side, whether it's trying to awaken and ascend, or whether it's the empaths that are struggling and they're in like feeling like they've got no power, feeling totally defenseless, feeling like, like they've got nobody on their side. We want to be on their side. And we want to say, come on, we're here and we're going to be able to help. We see you.
Yeah.
And you're not alone, because a lot of the time they feel alone because they're not understood, as you said, and the highly sensitive people not understood. And so we've got to help them.
See, there's something wrong with them. Like they think it, they see the shadow side, they think it's a curse, the sensitivity, which it really is until we learn how to manage it. It feels so difficult and burdensome when we
Yeah.
don't have skills and tools, when we don't
Yes.
know, and we just think we're crazy, you know what I mean? Like, or
And then it's
Exactly.
we're
reinforced
constantly,
that we are, isn't it?
yeah, when
It's
we're always being told we're too sensitive, or
Mhm.
like all the sort of static we get in the world from being the way that we are. So I
Right.
think, you know, all of the work that, you know, we're doing, bringing that all of us are doing, bringing it
Yes.
more into the mainstream and more into, you know,
Mm.
into the empowered side of it. There's great power there, but we
Yeah.
have to know how to manage ourselves, and what, you know,
Yeah.
all these different topics that we talk about on this
Yeah,
podcast.
Yeah.
and like that's where I get to applaud the two of you and what you're doing.
Oh, thank
You know, that you're doing research, that you're finding people, that you're
Mhm.
doing the work to bring these people together. Like that makes me choke up just a little bit. I get a little emotional when I think about people really showing up
Yeah.
to do the thing they're here to do. Like, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm
And
sure
thank
that
you,
many
Terra,
others.
because I
Yeah.
think you're doing some incredible work. And I think that with me, I've got a natural nurturer
Yeah.
phenotype.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm a connector. That's my,
Mhm.
I believe that my whole purpose on this earth is to connect. And
Yeah.
so that's what Superconscious Success is about. It's about connecting
Love
with
it.
your higher self. It's about connecting with source and connecting people to each other. And of course, me connecting with people, because I love it and I
Yeah,
love people.
right.
So
It feeds you too, right?
well, I just love people, and I love to hear stories, and I love
Yeah.
to bring the information to other
Mm.
people. And you know, I've got amazing collaborators like Lisa, who
Mhm.
was on my podcast, and we just hit it off.
Love it.
And so I think it's really, you know, it's powerful to bring people together that can get these messages out.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
totally think you're doing some amazing work.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I definitely, you know, when it comes to codependency, it's never too late to
Mm-mm.
learn. It's never too late to get out of that state, and you can
Right.
power up. Now, if we were to say to an empath out there, and we were to say,
Mhm.
look, we know that you're feeling a little bit lost. We know that you're feeling a little bit out of sorts and a little bit powerless, alone.
Mhm.
How do we then build it up and help them to power themselves up,
Mm.
so that they've got that self-worth and that self-esteem and that new identity, that new, you know, that new vision of themselves? How can we start to do this?
Okay,
It's a powerful one.
that's a tough one. And here's the reason. Because when we've created a certain pattern in our lives,
Yep.
it's hard to admit that we're part of that process.
Yeah.
And
Because we've got to take
so
responsibility first,
so
don't we?
so I'm literally like, the first exercise in my book is take
Take
responsibility.
responsibility. Yeah.
Literally the first step. And the thing about that means that it's not about shaming ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not about like, oh, I've screwed up so many times, I'm responsible for all the crap that's happening in my life. No, it's I'm responsible for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
So
responsible for
liberating,
me.
though.
Yeah.
It
Because so
is.
And
that's what takes us out of victim, you know, because
Yeah.
when we're like, oh, the bad energy
All
vampires, you
these
know,
things
and
are happening
it's
to me.
everybody's fault but mine, you know, like
Yes.
that.
and I think it's the only way we can get away from guilt
Yeah.
and shame.
Yeah,
The
it
only
is.
way is by taking responsibility and going, okay, I only did what I knew, for starters. Okay,
Right.
you wouldn't have done something that wasn't
That's
programmed
right.
in you. But you know what? I'm
Mm.
stepping up. You know
I'm
what?
gonna
Now
step
it
up.
stops. And so I
Right.
take responsibility for me now, which means
For me.
I'm putting myself first.
Right.
So
And
I'm
empowering. I
important.
found that so
Yeah.
empowering.
It is.
Me
And how
too.
to come out of the victim. And empaths really often go down the victim rabbit hole. Like
Oh,
we
so
feel,
easy.
you
So
know,
easy.
we are often victimized, so I
That's right.
understand it. We often do get
Of course.
victimized, I think, at a higher rate than non-empathic
Of
people.
course, because
So
we kind of wear it on our sleeves.
yeah, and because we don't
Take
have very good
advantage.
boundaries, because we don't
Right.
have good, you know,
Right.
like we're kind of an easy
Exactly.
target, but we have to move out of that and
Right.
to stand in our power. And I think that is the first step.
And I
100%.
think that once we can start moving it from I'm a victim of these energy vampires that are around me to what has this energy vampire got to teach me? Okay,
Right.
what can I
Right.
do to protect
So
myself?
huge.
But it's here for a reason. Okay,
It's here for a
Source has
reason.
brought this person into my life for a reason. So once we can do that, we can go, oh, this is all on me.
Oh,
Oh, Oh, amazing. Okay.
I get to, now we get to make the choice, which is that middle ground.
Yeah.
The middle ground is I get to make a choice now to live an empowered life or to stay a victim.
Yeah.
That's it. It's always about that middle space, you know, like everything comes back to the middle, because that, you know, my dad raised me knowing this idea of choice. We always have choices and decisions to make. And so even though dad didn't realize he was an empath when I was very young, I can remember hearing him say things when I was 3 years old, like, everything happens for a reason, and it always works out for the good. And the only way that happens is by your choices and decisions. He would just say these things all the time, you know, so it's like,
you were programmed for it.
I was programmed in some ways, but even my dad doesn't realize it. I tell him that and he gets all teary. He's like, I said that, you know, and I'm like, yeah, practically every day, you know. Like, of
my
course
dad
you
was
said
the
that.
same. Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
And,
yeah.
And I think that, you know, this is really important for kids to hear.
Right.
They need to hear this, but at the same time, we have to understand that, you know, kids, thankfully your son's not going to have to deal with a lot of that because he is unschooled. But those that do go to school do have to deal with the other kids. And so it's kind of like it's something, but that's part of their experience too.
It is. It's a part of growth. It's a part of the life that they came in to live and learn. And
but we've always said it's about choices. So
it's always about choices.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And one of the big choices that we have is to talk about it. You know, I talked about my dad a second ago, but with my mom, she was the one that I could come to and say, I feel like this thing has happened, or I could talk to either one of them, but mom was the one that would kind of come in with this channeled information and be like, oh, here's what you can do. Even though she had her own set of codependency and dad had his own, somehow those little gems would like slip out. And she would say, you like, I had a job that wasn't working for me. It was a great job overall. I was learning so much, but I remember calling my mom on a pretty regular basis. Like, I got to find a different job. This, like, it's also weighing me down. I feel like there's some things that aren't working. And she's like, love yourself out of that job. You know, so
what a beautiful thing to say.
So perfect. And I mean, what ended up happening was I didn't see how the universe was trying to support me. So it kind of kept escalating. And then finally one day it clicked and I was like, oh, this is me loving me out of my job. I'm out, you know.
The universe will keep building it up until eventually.
You haven't gotten it yet. Here's one more. I would love to. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I would love to throw out there just a couple of things because I feel like we're all here to share our tools and gifts and stuff. And there's two things that I want, because talking about collaboration and talking about community. I'm in the process of creating a website called Abundant Earth Cooperative.
Nice.
And within Abundant Earth Cooperative, the website is just now being created, but I've been literally holding the container for this since I was probably 23. So over 25 years, I've been holding the container for this idea that we all come together and it's a networking center and blah, blah, blah. And so you've got things like heal.me and you've got like all these websites that are doing something similar. Well, I'm creating my own space that others can come together and that we're all going to be sharing our gifts and abilities, and that there's going to be membership for the people who have something to share. And then there's going to be membership for people who are looking for something like that. And it's products and it's services and it's all these things. So I just kind of want to put that out there because here's the thing. I have my own glass ceiling, and that glass ceiling is when I'm in fear about something new happening, I hold back from talking about it. When I'm ready to talk about something, man, I'm all out, you know, like I'm just going to talk about, but what I usually wait for is the thing to sort of like take off, like do its thing. So what I'm saying this right now because I'm giving myself the opportunity to be like, it's not happened yet, but it's literally in the process of coming to life.
Oh, so
and
proud
I just
of you,
want to
Terra.
put some life. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
and what a beautiful thing to do. Like, what a beautiful mission.
Yeah, anything, you know, one thing that I've never understood, and probably more so since I've awakened. I think that as I've gone through the awakening process, I'm not a big believer in competition. Right. And I believe that we are here to work together. I believe 100%. That we're here. So I will support anybody if they're out there to help other people,
That's
I'm on
it.
their team.
Because
Me
here's
too.
I'm right there.
what they say about competition, like in the business world, what they
Yeah.
say about competition is that it actually grows your business.
Mhm.
Does.
Competition
Mhm.
builds and strengthens your business, because what it does is it makes you get stronger at what you're doing.
Yep.
And it makes people see that you're willing to do whatever
It
it takes.
legitimizes what we're
It
doing.
legitimizes it.
You know,
That's
like
it.
I started working as a psychic when I was 19. Never done
Mhm.
anything else. This is my whole gig, you know.
That's
And
amazing.
psychics are notoriously territorial. I mean, they're just like
Yes.
tigers. Like they have like a huge. Then they're like,
Yep.
"Meow, get off my couch," you know.
Yeah.
And I've never been that way. I've always been like, we are so much stronger together. We are
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
It just validates and builds and like creates a platform and brings acceptance into a larger
Mhm.
community. And I also train healers, so I'm always teaching.
awesome.
And do you know what I think it is too? I think a lot of the time the reason why people are so frightened and they're territorial is because they're stuck in scarcity. And
But
they're
there's
stuck in
8
that.
billion, 8
Yeah.
billion miserable
You
people
read-
on the planet right now.
Yeah,
You
There's
read my
enough
mind.
clients for all of us. Like,
It's
That's
like
it.
you know,
it's like
really.
well, there's not enough people to go around with all of us, and
Right.
I need that money. I've got to have that
Yep.
money come in,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
if this person gets my client, once you start to recognize that's not how it
Just
works,
let that go.
let it
That's
go,
not how it works.
and then there's no
That's not
such
how it
thing.
works. That's
Right.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't exist
I'm
anymore.
proud of you, and I think that
Thank you.
that's amazing. And
Thank
so,
you.
do you have any idea as to when this is going to sort of like be available to people?
So the vision that I had at the beginning of this year was October of this year, the website would be ready
Nice.
to
Make
launch.
sure you let us know when it happens.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. And then what's ended up happening is I kept doing the whole, like, my friend and I were just talking yesterday, another very empowered woman, Stephanie Besson. She and I were, y'all might want to talk to her too. She and I were just talking yesterday, and got this awareness of handicaps, like in tennis or golf, like you have a handicap, and like naming your handicap. And I think this is very beneficial for empaths and highly sensitive people as well. Like if we can name our handicaps out loud to someone else, then we start noticing them when they show up. So one of my handicaps is what I mentioned a minute ago. Like I kind of like hold on to something, hoping it's going to work out, and then waiting for it to work out. And that's like spin and spin in that space. That's that fear of like, and what's crazy is I wrote a book about that, right? So I literally know
it's much easier to write it than to have to live it.
We always write what we need to know,
it's
right?
That's it. We teach what we most need to learn, and we write what we most need to remember, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And so that's the thing, is like spinning out on our handicap. So when we can kind of get clear about what our handicaps are, then it's easier to build and strengthen from that handicap, because we actually become stronger because of it. Just like we talked about getting stronger because of the narcissistic type of people in our lives, right?
Yeah.
We get there. It's all angels in disguise.
Yep.
And we get this opportunity to keep growing and keep learning and keep saying, okay, universe, you put this in my life for a reason. What am I supposed to build from here? You know, how am I supposed to grow from this?
Awesome. So that was the first thing you wanted to tell us. What was the second thing?
The second thing is that what I've been doing for the last year and a half, I started January of last year, was my YouTube channel. Tuesdays, called Tuesdays. Well, my YouTube channel is called Terra Bundance. But the thing that I do every week is called Tuesdays with Terra. And I've been doing it every week. I think I skipped 1 week last year. And I've not skipped a week so far this year.
Good job.
Where I'm doing just little tools supporting empaths and highly sensitive people.
I've seen it on your website. Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And thank you. And I'm like, I know that that's going to take it somewhere. Like I want it to eventually do something else, like go to a bigger forum where I can get paid for it and all that stuff. But right now I'm just sharing what my knowledge that wants to come through me, putting it out there in the world. And I just want to put that out there just to say, one, I could use some extra subscribers. And two, I want people to come on there and have, leave comments. I want people to come on and say like, ask a question so that I can make that the next Tuesdays with Terra, you know, and to kind of help build and strengthen that as another aspect of community, you know,
fantastic.
And so those are the two things. I'm just kind of putting them out there to say, look, I'm trying to build community also, just like y'all. And I'm going to do everything I can to put everything I can out there about what you're doing. And I feel like when we start doing that, when we lift each other up, holy cow, the it's endless.
The sky's the limit once
endless.
that starts happening. And absolutely, Superconscious Success fan, make sure you head across, because I have watched some of yours that was on your website, because obviously you've linked them up, which is fantastic. And they're nice short little tools, and they're definitely worthwhile looking at. And you do it every week.
So
so go and subscribe to her channel, because you know it's really important that we support and that we do comment and ask questions. And if we're
subscribe.
Thank you.
and that's the thing, we need to ask questions, because then Terra can go and answer them,
right? I mean, to the best of my ability, right? To the best of my knowledge and ability. But the main thing for me is of course it's about building my brand, of course it's about like blah blah blah, but that's not my bottom line. You know, my bottom line is connecting with more empaths. My bottom line is, if it were about the bottom line, I would be trying to monetize it a year ago, but I've been doing it there's over 75 or something, you know, videos on there, and they're all literally things that are in my book, in my cards. They're things that I could make money off of, but right now the most important thing to me is to let people know that you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. And my tagline is now I just forgot it. I love it. The tagline is about empowering yourself, and now it'll come back to me in just a second.
That's okay.
Be you out loud. Be you out loud.
Oh, I love it.
That's good.
Be you out loud, because it's all about, like, you are here for a reason and a purpose. I would love to share one little tidbit thing, because one of the things that we talk about a lot as codependent people is being empowered, or giving away our power, or taking our power back. And I had an awareness that came to me that was completely channeled through that there's no way we can actually give away our power. And so I want to put that out there as another tool for empaths and highly sensitive people and codependent people. Like, when we say I gave my power away, that person took away my power, it literally is impossible for someone to take your power. But what we can do is dull our vibration. We can suppress it. We can lower the volume. We can do something to again, it's about a choice. So when we recognize that our power is still with us, that nobody took it away, then we can start living from that place of rebuilding into becoming that empowered person that we are on the inside.
Love it. Because it's true. I mean, I think it's
true.
It's so true, because the fact of the matter is, we were created as whole and complete and beautiful and, you know, perfect in every way.
In every way.
But we do, as our vibration lowers, as we dim that because of all the different things that happen outside of us, then we start to suppress it so much that we don't recognize it's there anymore.
That's right.
And our purpose of Lisa and my podcast and our programs and what you're doing, Terra, let's bring that power back up. Let's give you that voice. Let's go, okay, you've got this purpose. Let's speak it. Let's bring it and stand up for yourself and teach yourself how to do that. So, and amazing.
I'm sorry, just a little caveat, because one of the things that I've had to recognize is that I'm an extrovert and I'm an external processor, right?
Okay.
So I'm very much out loud. You know, I'm Terra out loud. I coined the phrase Terra out loud many years ago. and then I started saying be you out loud, but here's the caveat is that there's internal processors, there's introverts. And so when they hear you say be you out loud, they're like, but I'm not loud. You know,
but you don't have
I'm
to
not
be loud.
vocal. You don't have to. That's not the point. It's be you out loud, right?
Because the thing is, Terra, I'm actually an introvert.
You know what's funny? I actually believe that.
Yeah.
I do see, I can sense that. But what's crazy and cool is that when we as empaths can tune into each other's comfort zone, then we don't force each other to be something that we're not. You know, I don't want everybody to look like me. What would be the point? Just like we don't want everybody to be empaths. What would be the point? We're not here to learn from that space.
No.
We're here to support and hold each other up in the power and the strength that is within us. So the silent people sometimes have more to say without words than the vocal loud people do. You know, here you are an introvert, right? And here you have this power to say more through your conversations with other people than I could ever say out loud to 10 people.
And I think that's why I love interviewing so much, because I love talking. I have no problems with talking, but after an interview, I have to recharge.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love you guys, and I really, you can tell I'm excited. You can tell I'm pumped up with my interviews, and I can probably go 2 hours, and then after that I'm just like, okay, just need to recharge, go meditate for a bit.
Yeah.
And my husband, he knows by now, because if we're at a party, I can probably last maybe an hour and a half, and I nick off. And I'll go and sit by a pool or do something, and someone will go, "Oh, where is she?" And he goes, "Oh, it's okay. She's just recharging. It's okay. She's just doing a thing. She'll be back in 10 minutes." And I think that's the thing. Once, like you said, once we recognize, and because Lisa, you're an introvert too, right?
I'm sort of an ambivert, so I have a little bit of both, but that's why I like writing. Writing is the perfect communication tool for an introvert, because it's like a lot of impact, but it's real kind of from behind. It's kind of quiet.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, I call myself an outgoing introvert. So I love to talk to people and interview and all that sort of thing. But I think that the only difference is that introverts need to recharge themselves internally. As you said, and extroverts
that's true for me.
get charged by other people.
That's it. That's me. Yeah. And that when you say, like, as soon as we get off of this, just like me at a gig, if I'm performing and I'm singing to a whole group of people for 4 hours, afterwards, I'm like, let's go. What's the next thing? Because I've just been completely filled up by all the people. And
I'm like, where's the tubby? Like, I need a salt tub, and I need to meditate, and I need a nap, and I need to walk in the woods.
But the funny thing is that after I get off the call with all my collaborators and my interviewers and stuff, sometimes I will literally be pumped up for like 2 or 3 hours because there's so much energy that's kind of come at me. And then after that time, I just flake it. I'm just like, okay, I'm done. So, but I think it's a great point that we need to really just tap in and recognize, like you said, introverts are not going to be necessarily outspoken out loud, and that's okay, because there are so many other ways that you can spread your message,
like through creativity. The loud might be painting or dancing or writing or other things that, like, there's so many ways of expressing ourselves. That's right. You got to find something that,
and you find your place.
You do. And as a codependent empath, you need to find something that you love, and you need to figure out what you love.
That's right.
Your purpose and your passion is.
That's right.
And that is how you're going to move away from that, because you're going to start realizing, I'm putting time into me. And you know what? Who cares if nobody else likes it?
And
that's not your business.
Exactly. And that's, again, that's the codependent in us, that we're looking for that validation. Absolutely. But we can't get here's the crazy thing about validation. Nobody can actually validate us.
No.
Because if somebody says you're amazing, you have to actually believe it first for it to be true.
And then if they say you're terrible, you have to believe in that too. We have to disconnect and then internally validate.
That's it. So we're looking, as codependents, we're like always out there looking for some kind of validation that we're literally never gonna find.
And you don't need it. Once you learn how to self-validate, you're like,
that's it. That's it.
Okay.
My biggest, my handicap from childhood was that I always thought that I had to prove myself to everyone, to be noticed, to be seen, I have to one up myself all the time. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And now I got to prove this, and now I got to prove that. And once I realized, after a lot of work, that proving myself was never going to make me feel more confident about who I am.
Yeah.
All it's going to do is keep looking. People are going to keep seeking, oh, she's going to do this for me. Cool. I'm
Yeah.
going to get more. I'm going to take
Makes
more.
more
I'm going to do
codependency. So
makes
exactly.
builds it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Geez, we have covered so much today. And
have.
I know that we've been going for absolutely ages, but I know there's a lot of great content there for the listeners to learn about codependency and about how you can get that power back, because it's available within all of us. And so we want to thank you today, Terra. We have had an absolute ball with you.
Thank
So
you
fun.
so much.
And you are
So
such
awesome.
a bright and a shining light that we've really loved having on the show. So thank you so much for that. Can you give our listeners just your website address? And we've already told them about your YouTube channel. So head across there. So what's your website address?
So the website right now is terrabundance.com, and eventually that will also lead to the new website.
Okay, great.
Right now it's just a very basic templated, simple website, and it just gets people in contact with me. Otherwise, I'm Terra Bundance, Terra Bundance, Bundance, on all social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I've got a profile and a business page. So it's Terra Bundance pretty much everywhere. If you want to find me, it's very easy. I'm the only Terra Bundance so far in the world. I created the name for myself. So yeah, I'm the only one out there. And so if you want to find me, it's very easy. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here. And we'll definitely have you back on at some point, because this has been an absolutely enjoyable experience. Maybe once your platform's launched, come back and we'll have another chat.
That'd be
absolutely
fun. Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for your time today, Terra.
Blessings. Thank you.